Hey, I'm Jabir Shank. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to begin the Davis-Bacon series. Okay, this is part of the IWC high-paying contract job and intentional lifestyle design YouTube series. Okay, Davis-Bacon is going to be a really important one because this is the highest paying job path that I will talk about that I've done, that I have direct experience with. Okay, Davis-Bacon is basically the name of a law or an act that was passed. I've only ever worked Davis-Bacon in Alaska, but the point of this is that you have to be paid prevailing wage on certain jobs that run over X amount for the cost of the total job. And what prevailing wage is minimum wage plus the fringe. Fringe stands for all benefits that would be included for a full-time worker, okay? So what that means is your dental, your health care, Social Security, all these types of things that would normally be paid to an employee then have to be calculated out and added on top of your minimum wage, okay? So I did this in rural Alaska. The work is really big out there. There's a lot of Davis-Bacon work, and that's because a lot of the projects up there are civil projects, which means they are construction projects that are being done through the government to help local communities around the small villages of Alaska. But the Davis-Bacon Act actually operates everywhere in the United States, okay? But for this, the simplicity of this video and because of my direct experience, I'll talk about how to get those jobs in Alaska. Also, Alaska being the highest paid one, okay? Another really great thing about the Davis-Bacon jobs is they are usually live-in jobs with very long hours. You can find jobs where they're in town, but still the hours are long, okay? For example, I was working 7 tens, so 70 hours a week, okay? My prevailing wage was about 60 bucks an hour. And then every day after 8 hours, I was getting overtime, and every hour after 40 hours, I was getting overtime, okay? So my hourly rate would then come out to be like $105 an hour, okay? So I ended up making about $5,000 a week, and I had no expenses because I was living inside of a local village, and the housing was included and the food was included, okay? So this was an incredible opportunity. I was working as a laborer, okay? So this is a unqualified position. I didn't have to have any experience. I just had to be willing to go up there and work, okay? I did this for 2 months and I made $42,000. I'll put that up here. That's the most amount of money I've ever made in that amount of time doing anything, okay? So Davis-Bacon is a huge opportunity, and it's actually easier to get hired than a lot of people would imagine, okay? Especially if you have any kind of trade certifications, electrician, plumber, carpenter, any kind of trade like this, you can get Davis-Bacon work fairly easily. It will be much harder for someone to get a job like I had as a laborer. The laboring positions are not as ubiquitous, but there is a lot of like in town construction laborer jobs. For example, a lot of like the sign holders, when you say stop and go on a construction site on the road, a lot of those in Alaska are actually Davis-Bacon. And there's a lot of construction jobs up there that actually do offer Davis-Bacon, but they usually won't be as long of projects, okay? And I'll talk about it on another video how you can get those jobs, and I'll talk about more about the exact amounts. But this one, I just kind of wanted to explain what Davis-Bacon is, okay? So Davis-Bacon is an act, and this act was put in place to protect workers, like contract workers, okay? So that these contract workers who are not getting benefits and not getting healthcare, not getting all this stuff, get paid accordingly, okay? And so the hourly rate may not seem high, but then when you equate the hours in and the amount of overtime that you get on a weekly basis, it becomes incredible. And I'm not exactly sure, but I'm almost positive that Trump has removed taxes on overtime in some way. So when I was doing this, I got taxed a lot on my overtime, and I still believe you'd get taxed on it, but I think you'd get taxed even less. So you might even, make more than I made, which could be crazy because like $5,000 a week for the job I was doing is insane. But maybe you'd even make 55 to 6 now if there's no tax on the overtime. Okay. So I'll go into on the next video more opportunities, but I'll say right now the biggest opportunity is for people with trade certificates. Okay. So if you're an apprentice or a journeyman in any of those trades, electrician, plumber, carpenter, welder, okay, those kind of things, If you're already in the industry, already an apprentice, already a journeyman, you can get a job really easily. If you're just getting into those kind of trades and you don't have any certifications and you just want to be a laborer, it'll be a bit more difficult, okay? But a lot of the guys all the guys who I was working with, they were all clearing at least 200 grand a year, and a majority of them were clearing more like 250 a year. So it's a really amazing blue collar opportunity, okay? And like I said, usually on those jobs, you get to live in there. You have to be away from your family, which is hard, but you get to save everything. There's no expenses. So most of those guys were just sending, $5,000-$6,000 checks back home every week, which is obviously a really great career if you want to take care of a family, but you have to be away a lot. But in terms of, working your hours away for money, it's probably the absolute best one you could do in the blue collar arena. I would say it's one of them. Okay. And I'm putting together a online group that I just launched last week. It's called the International Worker Collective. And on this group, we have about 4 different career pathways. We have Davis Bacon, we have Australian mining, we have commercial fishing, we have teaching abroad. Those are the 4 pathways we have so far. And what I do in this community is we help people from steps A all the way through Z to get these jobs, to get hired, to get paid. And then we also help with strategic positioning after you get the jobs, after you get paid, how you can then utilize geo arbitrage to maximize your capital to then allow you to leverage investments and aggressive growth. Okay, so if you're interested in that, you can look at the pinned comment below. I'll have the link, and you can also look at the description. I'll have it there too. See you on the next one.